Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at The Last Spell, the board game, which is brought to you by Tabletop Games. It's for 2 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and games generally run about 120 to 150 minutes. In this tactical cooperative game, The Last Spell, the board game, a tabletop adaptation of Ishtar Games and their video game of the same name. You are a hardened warrior whose only purpose in life is to desperately defend the last of the mages while they try to cast the last spell and banish all magic from this world and maybe save us all. Maybe. The game is set in a dark fantasy post-apocalyptic world in which you have to carefully manage the scarce resources at your disposal and to survive just long enough. Gameplay revolves around 3 cycles of day and night in which you, the players, use daylight hours to bolster the game economy, fortify defenses against nocturnal invaders, and upgrade your hero's equipment to unlock more power. You can choose to play a single scenario or embark on a campaign that challenges you with increasing levels of difficulty, with a plethora of weapons and abilities at your disposal across multiple plays. There's always something new to explore. This will truly be your ultimate test of your strategic prowess. Witness the fiery destruction of the city in the face of overwhelming odds. Time is limited. You have 3 days and nights to hold the line and save the world, so the last spell can be invoked. Do you have what it takes? Let's find out. So, I only recently jumped into the video game after experiencing the board game, and I can tell you that the board game really does have that same vibe, the same feel as the video game. They did a really good job, and they even used some of the art from the video game and so forth. But the neat thing here is that this is a tower defense style game with some twist to it. But you have to bolster your defenses during the day, and that's what we're going to jump into first. You have walls that start out as wooden walls, and you have gates that are wooden gates. And you can upgrade these to stone walls and stone gates. And you have materials that you're going to be using to do that. And you also have gold. Those are the 2 main resources you're going to be dealing with. You use gold basically to buy new buildings or upgrade buildings, give you more abilities and so forth, but the materials are meant for defense. So you can build those walls, you can build ballistas, you can build watchtowers and catapults. So you have lots of ways to defend the city, and then the buildings are going to come into play to help you bolster your resources in the day phase. And you really do have to protect all of these different types of buildings, as well as the circle in the middle where you have the mages and the flame that they're trying to invoke that final spell. And of course, the other way to defend the city is to use a hero. Every player will get a hero, and you'll have your hero card, which shows the level 1 and level 2 side. The level 2 comes into play later in the campaign. And if you choose to do one-off scenarios, you can go either way, but you have a miniature that mimics your hero that will stay off the board until the night phase, or the end of the day phase, I should say. And you're going to start with your player card that across the top will show your movement abilities, on the left is going to show your health, and on the right will show your mana. At the bottom, it's going to show your melee and your jumping abilities that you might have to get over a half kind of small obstacles and walls. So you'll need all that for your character, but you'll be using and spending points. You've got action points that you're going to have based on player count. Some actions are going to be free, some are going to require that you use these specifically when attacking and so forth. But you are going to get out of the gate, you're going to get an armor card, you're going to get a weapon card, you're going to get perks and traits. Those are all different types of cards. They're going to aid your hero and give them special abilities, specifically to who they are. And what's neat is that you can do this randomly and deal them out, and then the heroes can trade and give each other the best type of weapons and so forth that might suit that character. So during the day, there's 3 main phases. You have the upkeep phase, the main phase, and finally the end phase. Now within each of those, there's a series of steps, but I'm just going to give you a general broad overlook of each of these phases. So in that upkeep phase, one of the big things you're doing is getting resources so you can do all kinds of things in the main phase. So if you have buildings in play, let's say you have gold mines and you have scavenger camps, you're going to be gathering what they produce. And depending on their level will determine how much of that resource. So you get gold or you get building materials that you put on the stash that everyone has access to. Cards can end up here too that folks can dip into and distribute among the heroes and so forth. So those buildings will already have to be in play in order to get those resources. So you're gathering resources so you can do some building in the next phase. Now, the other thing here is that the mist, there's this purple mist around the board, and that's where the creatures or monsters are coming from. This mist is going to start to move in one step at a time And as it does, then you're also going to draw a card to determine where monsters are going to show up in the night phase. And depending on where you are in the day and night cycle will show you which numbers get a card. And what's neat here is that the cards are going to come in face down. So if you have built a seer, a building for the seer, potentially you've upgraded it, then you can take a glimpse at what those monsters are going to be, but as they will come in face up instead of face down. In the case of this card, we're going to fill 1, 2, and 7. So you just grab these cards and you're going to place them around the board, getting ready for that night phase. And this all happens in this upkeep, getting ready as you move into the next main phase to bolster the town and build up your defenses. And at the end of the upkeep phase, depending on where you are in the campaign, you'll be able to upgrade your heroes from level 1 to level 2. Also, if that's not at that point, you can choose a perk card, adding more abilities to your heroes. So those are really crucial things because you really do need to bolster, gear up your heroes for the night phase. And then we move to the main phase. And you know what? In that main phase, you have various things you're going to be doing, but you do have virtual workers. So to start, in this map, we have 2 houses. And you can potentially get 2 more, so 4 workers. And what you need those workers for is to go and jump into these ruins so you can scavenge them and get all the resources from those different ruins and pull that ruin off the board once you do, because it has been scavenged and all the resources have been taken. You could get cards, you get gold, you get building resources, all kinds of different things, and it's all listed at the base of the ruins. So that's a key part for sure, getting enough workers, having buildings in play for that. And then of course you can build buildings and you can upgrade your walls. So walls and getting the ballistas and things like that, this is where you'll do that. You'll be paying building resources for the defense. It's 2 to build a wooden wall and then 2 to upgrade a wooden wall to a stone wall and so forth. So in the buildings though, you're going to be paying gold to add a building and paying more gold to upgrade the building. And to start things off, you're gonna have a shop building. Now, that gives you access to level 1 cards for like armor and for weapons and bows and magic, but there's buildings here that you can buy and upgrade to give you access to level 2 and level 3 cards, but that's gonna cost you gold in order to do that. So you'll have to get those resources so you can get the bigger and better equipment for your heroes. So the other type of buildings that we've already kind of talked about them, but they're on the shop board as well, is the seer. We talked about what the seer does. And then we have the gold mines. You can have up to 3 of those. And you have the scavenger camps. You can have 3 of those as well. Also, you have 2 more houses you can build for those virtual workers. So those are other types of buildings that you're going to use and get to help bolster your community and also your economics of your town in order to get more and more resources so you can do more things with your heroes and build up your defenses throughout the city. The other things you might do in this main phase is buy and sell equipment, or you may trade or leave equipment, and really you have the stash for that, you're placing cards and so forth in. So lots of options to swap out things and bolster those heroes once again. Then the last thing, well, not last thing, you probably would do this first in the main phase, but if any of the buildings are on fire from being attacked, whenever a building is attacked and hit from one of the monsters, it catches on fire. And generally, 1 fire is not too bad, but a second fire will destroy the building. So if it has 1 fire on already, you should definitely repair that as one of the key things you're doing in the main phase. Now, the end part of the day phase is all about regeneration and deploying your heroes to the battlefield, so to say. Now, regeneration is if you have damage on your heroes, you're going to be removing damage. You're going to be doing things like restoring cards if they've been used in a previous night phase, like armor has absorbed damage, then you can make it ready for this next night phase. So any cards like that you can put into play and get them ready, basically prepping for the battle that's going to hit all the heroes and the town. Then we move to the night phase. And the main thing here to understand is there's multiple ways for the heroes to lose the game. You only win the game if you hold the line for 3 days and 3 nights. So that gives the mages time to invoke the last spell. But you can lose, like if one of the heroes is destroyed, then you lose the game. If all the mages in the circle are destroyed, you're going to lose the game. So lots of different ways for things to come to an end. And you really have to be mindful and manage your resources and all of your defenses, keeping things in good working order in order to hold for those 3 days. Now, all the monsters in the game have their own miniatures, as well as are defined at the bottom of your board, showing their health and their capabilities, what dice they're going to roll when they try to defend, and so forth. So you'll see all of those listed at the bottom, and most of the monsters have 1 health, and usually the heroes are doing 1 hit, 1 death kind of thing, if the dice don't allow a monster to block, that is. Now, you have multiple attempts to attack and so forth, but the thing here is that monsters are somewhat fragile, but as you get to the higher level ones, they're going to get harder and harder for sure. But the night phase is divided into 2 phases really. You come down to monster phase and then hero phase. And you're going to alternate back and forth until all the monsters have been eliminated or the heroes have lost the game. At the top of the monster phase, you'll be first flipping the fate coin. This determines how monsters deal with obstacles, especially the ones around the city, because they're going to be making a straight line trying to get to the city, and they're going to have to encounter these. And how do they do that? What direction do they go? So the coin will determine that. And then, you're going to be flipping these cards over, and there's a sequence of how these cards flip over and so forth, but eventually they'll all be flipped, monsters will spawn, you'll put them on the green slots for this first town or first scenario of the campaign. But more and more monsters will appear as you move through the campaign, the second and third and so forth. So the thing here is that these monsters will come out, they'll spawn, and then you're going to start to move monsters. And again, they move in a straight line. And all their stats and how they move are all here at the bottom of the board. And of course, there's all kinds of rules around how the monsters move. So as these monsters move in towards the city, they're going to be attacking the walls and buildings, and of course they'll be attacking the heroes, which is one of their primary targets, as well as the mages if they get inside. Now, when they attack buildings and walls, they're going to do fire damage, and when they attack the heroes, they'll use the red crystals to show damage on those heroes. And as those monsters move in and wreak havoc, you got to keep an eye on the panic level at the bottom of the board. As that panic level increases, you will get less benefits or you'll get less rewards at the end of the battle. Then it's time for the hero phase. Now, if this is, say, the second hero phase, you can replenish your action points and your movement points, but not your mana. So you do get options to do all kinds of different things with these points that you have available to you. Movement and action, and especially with the weapons you have, they may require that you use action points along with movement and mana all combined to do various things. So you're going to use your perks, you're going to use your weapons, you're going to attack, you're going to move. You may use your stationary things around the town like ballistas that are going to basically do 1 point of damage, but you also have the catapults who launch these boulders, so to say, that do a 3x3 grid of damage. Now those can also affect heroes and buildings, so you got to be careful there, but you hope to wipe out monsters at a big hit with those catapults. So having those in play is really nice. And you're going to be using all those things at your disposal to try to eliminate the monsters and end the night phase. So that's just a simplification of what you're doing with the heroes, obviously. But again, with those different types of weapons and things, there's icons. They're going to show you what they do. There's a whole list of different possibilities and how you use them. Your traits really do come into play. And your armor, when you take hits from a monster, you can choose to have your armor absorb those hits by deactivating the armor, turning the card to the side. And obviously in the next round or next turn you may not have that armor available anymore. So it is this interesting, how do I best use my resources at the time in dealing with these creatures and monsters, and using your best fortifications and so forth. And I really like how you spend the points to do movement as you combine different types of movement to do various things with your weapons, or how you close with the monsters and so forth. But there's also watchtowers that you can climb up on and perhaps fire a bow from to hit monsters at a distance and so forth. So the watchtowers are neat, as well as there are warp gates that you can put into play that you can move around the map much faster. So all those things require different types of movement points in order to invoke and use and so forth. But those different types of buildings and things you have accessible to you are very important. Now, also, there is line of sight like any good game of this type. And they've got some rules, or rulers for you, I should say, that show you exactly how that works. And it's a really interesting aspect. Buildings are going to be in your way quite frequently. You're going to have to move and maneuver yourself in order to also be open to monsters, but to attack them before they get to the city, or more importantly, before they get to the mages, because that's definitely a way to lose the game. So you really have to use your resources wisely, not only in that day phase, but as you use the resources of your heroes at night in order to stop the monsters from destroying the city. Alright folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen has been in prototype form, so keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, like I said, this is really a well done conversion from video game to board game. They did a fantastic job with that for sure, because you do have the same feel, the same vibe, and as you use your heroes, they have different zones and such that they're in that they can attack adjacent, and if they have bows, they can go further out and so forth. So that's a really neat aspect, which is also akin to the video game and how that works. I really like the fact that there's so many options for heroes. There's even potions, which we didn't dive into really, to give you all kinds of different abilities and how you use them, and you can obviously refill potions and use them again in later rounds and so forth. So I really like the aspect of all the possibilities, all the different traits and perks that are available to the heroes and how you deal with the monsters. The miniatures are really fantastic, and I like the 3D look of the board. And you do get that sense of time pressure as the monsters come ever closer, because the mist does encroach on the town, and it does, like I said, 3 days, 3 nights to defend the city, defend the mages, and let them cast that last spell. But folks, ultimately, if this is like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it for me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.